All right. So round one, board three, named after the 606. If you've ever heard of the High Line in New York, that's kind of the Chicago version. It's a converted rail line. It's beautiful to run on. We've got a couple of ranked players and several players. It's the first time playing in a DBN covered game. Randy, we'll go ahead and start with you. Anybody you recognize? Any names stand out?
Couple of names, yeah. Peter McNamara out of Australia, the very strong player. Played with him a few times, so it'll be interesting to see what he has to do. Melinda Holley is another very strong player who's been in the hobby for I think quite a while, and Maxim Popov as well. Actually, I think it's a relatively recent entrant to the face-to-face or digital face-to-face hobby, but he had strong showings at both Dixie and Boston, so I would expect to see some good play out of him as well. I don't recognize the other players' names.
All right. Adam, anybody else stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I've played with Peter many, many times. He is one of the most tactically gifted players out there. He's a good negotiator. He's a incredibly strong player, and really knows how to read a board. I recognize Jake and Paul. I think they're both Weasels. And Maxim, I've certainly seen on the broadcast several times and has done very well in these virtual events. So, and of course, Melinda is a longtime hobbyist who I've come across on numerous occasions.
Peter McNamara, a former Alpha Weasel, winner of this Weasel Moot tournament, and David Spanos is in Nashville, but he's a former Windy City Weasel. Jake Trotta, and I all joined the league right around the same time, around 2015, 2016 timeframe. Paul Pignotti is a longtime Weasel. So these three players have played many games together. It's going to be really interesting to see if they use that to work together or to tear each other apart. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. Okay. So we have our spring 1901 moves. Randy, would you like to take the West or the East?
I'll take the West.
All right. Why don't you go ahead and start us off?
Sure. We see England and France managed to avoid the channel, which is usually a good sign for both of them, good sign of things to come. France keeps Germany out of Burgundy, which makes me wonder if that was an arranged bounce, given that he used Marseille to do it. And I don't often see Germany go into Burgundy unless it's arranged or he thinks he'll miraculously get in. Otherwise, the moves in the West look fairly typical. Germany picks up Denmark, although he's not going to be able to guarantee himself Holland if England decides to keep him out of it in the fall.
All right. And in the East, Adam.
Well, it's wonderful to finally see Russia and Austria agree not to bounce Galicia. There's a lot of other more interesting things that you can do than bouncing units, and Russia shows us that by sending Moscow up to St. Petersburg. Always creates some fascinating dynamics in the north and changes the negotiation and the dynamics going into the fall of 1901. So that's great to see. We also see the Italians walk right into Trieste. Obviously not being privy to the negotiations, this very well may be arranged. It very well may not be. So we'll have to see what it does from there.
Yeah, in my experience, if it is intended to be anti-Austrian, it's typically followed up with a move of the army to Venice. But we'll find out. The other move that I thought was interesting, just to point out, this particular French opening Paris to Gascony, I didn't really see that a ton in face-to-face. It would come up occasionally. But I think this is a sign of how integrating the online community with the face-to-face community is somewhat changing the meta of these virtual face-to-face games. This is a very common opening in gunboat games in particular. I have definitely noticed a trend for this opening becoming more common as we've welcomed some players that are new to the face-to-face hobby.
That's very interesting to me, since personally, as a French player, I don't typically like moving Paris down to Gascony, because if, as happens here, you get bounced in Burgundy, you forgo any say over what happens in Belgium. And as France, I usually like to have some sort of say over that.
I think I'm not. I don't play gunboat as much as a lot of other players, but I think it's more common for England to open to the Channel, and so I think Gascony gives you some protection if English does go to the Channel, and still gives you some flexibility over Iberia. I think that's the logic behind it. All right, so moving on, we'll stay in the east. Go ahead, Adam.
Yeah, so the Turks take the Black Sea, the Russians support themselves to Romania, the Austrians support themselves to Greece, and the Italians sit and hold in Trieste but move the army back up into Venice. So not a lot of unusual movement right there. Maybe Apulia to Venice is, some decisions there whether to convoy to Tunis or to do something else, and so elects to do that. We do see the French move into Piedmont, which is exciting, and a German move into Silesia, which is also exciting. Certainly going to impact how people think about builds.
Yeah, and I think it speaks a lot to what's going on in the West. Randy.
All signs say Western Triple.
Absolutely.
France picks up Iberia, gets an early jump in Piedmont. I think we can expect to see a French fleet in Marseille in the winter. England throws that army into Norway, preparing to go over the top, grab St. Petersburg. Doesn't hassle Germany for Holland, obviously, and Germany puts into Silesia. So all signs are go for the Western Triple.
Absolutely. All right, let's find out how the rest of the board reacts to that. We've got a fleet in Eddie, an army in Paris, a fleet in Marseille, 2 fleets from Italy, including one in Rome. We've got an army in Munich, army in Berlin, army Warsaw, and fleet Smyrna. Randy, anything stand out to you in the Western builds?
That double army build from Germany is a commitment to the triple. That is, they are pretty much only useful against Russia. You could argue that they could be used against France, but probably not. This looks like Germany is full on for the triple.
Would you argue in favor of the army over the a fleet?
If I'm Germany, no. You need, or you want, the flexibility usually, and the extra army doesn't necessarily help you all that much.
All right, and in the East, anything stand out to you, Adam?
No, I mean, I don't think it's a surprise to see an army in Warsaw and a fleet in Smyrna under these circumstances. I think that's exactly what you would expect to see. And I'll just reiterate what Randy said. I mean, that army in Munich, in the case of a triple, where is it going to go? Bohemia or Tyrolia or something? I mean, I'd rather have the fleet in the Baltic, be able to secure the position up north, be able to convoy something into Livonia if you get Sweden this year. It's just not. There's just not as much to do with it, I think.
That army is probably better for the triple. It's not necessarily better for Germany.
There you go.
What do you make of the double fleet build for Italy? Do you like that?
Yeah, it's the right build. It's the right build with an agreed upon taking of Trieste by Austria. You don't want to put more armies down. You want to have the fleets. There's a Western triple coming with the moves last turn. You need those fleets to defend against France, and you're probably going to need one in the Ionian to deal with encroachment by Turkey. So you need both of those fleets, absolutely.
All right. Starting in the West, Randy.
England throws the army over into Barents, walks into Sweden unopposed. So he's going to be able to pick up Sweden. Won't be able to grab St. Petersburg. Russia wisely bounced England out of Norway there, so Russia prolongs things a bit in the north. France and Germany's moves are all consistent with the triple, as Adam alluded to. That army in Munich drops down in Tyrolia, so presumably to help France pick up or try for Venice at least. Meanwhile, the French fleets rotate around to get better position on the Med.
I like it. All right, in the East.
I'll just, looking at this, I would have maybe preferred an English army there. What do you think about that? To try to just get a second army up north. Do you really need that extra fleet right now?
No, I mean, if I'm England, I probably would have built an army instead of that additional fleet. You're right. If you're England, armies are a precious resource. So anytime that you can build them, you generally want to. And obviously, the fleet in Eddie isn't doing anything right now. It's just bounced out of the North Sea.
Yeah. So looking at the east, I'll make a comment on the Italian order. So Italy opts to support the fleet to Tuscany rather than making the attack, supporting the attack on Trieste. On Tyrolia. Probably regretting that at this stage. I think there's an argument for why you go to Tuscany instead of Tyrrhenian Sea there. I can definitely appreciate that, but I think that protecting Tyrolia at this stage is much more important because there's all kinds of bad guesses you've got to make when you have a German army there that affects both you and affects Austria, having to potentially cover centers and pull units back. Notably, the Austrians and the Russians are working together to attack the Turks. This makes sense. There's a Western Triple. Turkey really can't do a lot to help you against it. They're really just behind you, being a pain in the neck, trying to get out of the box, slowing you down. So I'm not surprised to see that. The Austrian move to Galicia is not anti-Russian. It's covering Galicia in case the Germans move there. And it's potentially supporting things moving forward. This is such an obvious Western Triple. The East is taking absolutely the right steps to hold back against it, but may get overwhelmed tactically.
One thing I want to point out just real quick here that I hadn't noticed before, but Peter McNamara in England is a very tactically sound player. And he, as we noticed, instead of moving Eddie to the Norwegian, which clearly would have worked, he probably deliberately bounced himself out of the North Sea. So I wonder if that's going to rapidly lead to England throwing fleets into, for example, Helgoland and the North Sea and turning on Germany if after he picks up Sweden and figures there's nowhere else to go up north.
Yep.
Oops. So one thing that stood out to me was the Italians' move to Ionian. What, Adam, do you make anything out of that?
I guess I don't have a problem with it. I think, you want to be in the Ionian. You know that Turkey's going to bring their fleet out. It's certainly, you'd certainly rather be in the Tyrrhenian Sea, but I can understand it from sort of a sort of just general principles standpoint. I think if you're going to go Rome to Tuscany, though, you probably want to go to the Tyrrhenian Sea. If you're going to go Rome to Tyrrhenian Sea, then the Ionian makes sense. So that's kind of how I would look at it from here. But you do have to worry about the French going to Tuscany and, doing some funky stuff from there. So, it's a lot of guesses. It's a lot of just taking your best shot there.
Yeah, I wonder if we're looking at an air alliance and they're going to maybe feed Greece to Italy to help him fend off France while Austria picks up builds or something along those lines.
It's possible.
All right, so let's find out. Adam, go ahead and take us through the East.
Yep. All right, so... okay, so we have the Germans are actually decide to cover Munich from Silesia, and the Austrians don't go there, so Germany's moving in the wrong direction for where they want to be, but they do go up to Livonia. So now Russia's going to have some problems. Some futile attacks in the north by Russia, and some attempts in the south by Turkey's not even really making an effort to get Bulgaria back and opts to support the Austria, and maybe seeing that as a potential path to hang out at three centers for a while the Western Triple does its thing and then get back into the game later. So whole lot of not much. The Italians do manage to get into Tyrolia this time. And yeah, it's hard to separate the West and the East here because of this triple, but I'll let Randy talk about what's going on around France because that's also kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, France does a good job covering the Mid-Atlantic Ocean. That would have been a huge problem for him if Italy had walked in there. So he covers it, drops the army to Marseille, but it's gonna be a slow going for France down there. He's gonna have to force the Western. He can't force the Western Med without risking the Mid-Atlantic Ocean. So that Italian fleet in the Western Med is just going to be a real problem for France, and I don't see France picking anything off of Italy in the near future. One thing I noticed that is good or interesting, England moves to the Norwegian Sea finally, I'd be willing to bet a large sum of money that the build is an army in Eddie, and I would also be willing to bet a large sum of money that England is going to stab Germany in 1903. It looks like he is setting himself up. Germany walked out of Denmark. Prussia walks to Livonia. He covers Munich, but he's up in Bohemia. He's not in a particularly good position, even with his build. If it's another army in particular, I wouldn't be surprised to see this Western Triple fall apart very rapidly.
There's such a strong case here in the interest of the triple to give the Belgian build to France instead of Germany. And if England could have pulled that off, wow, what a dominating position he would have on Germany. It's going to make it a little bit harder with Germany having the build. But, man, if you're France here, you've got to make that argument that I got to put another fleet down to cover mid-Atlantic and to be able to make any progress. Germany's got the armies they need. I mean, this is really, you know, if you're playing a triple, you really want France to get the build here.
But either way, Germany almost has to build a fleet here, right?
You would think so.
You know, this is the problem, though, right? And this is the problem with not building that fleet in 1901. It becomes harder to justify building the fleet the longer the game goes on. You know, the only reason you're building it at this stage is to defend yourself against England. And if you're defending yourself against England, you're not advancing the triple. So England says, screw it, I'm going to just attack you. You don't build the fleet, and England says you're completely defenseless because you only got one fleet. So screw it, I'm going to attack you. I mean, you know, you put yourself in such a bad position, and it's just damned if you do, damned if you don't at this point.
But that's the danger of Germany with the Western Triple. So, all right, let's find out what happens. Okay, we got an army. Wow, there it is. Playing the diplomatic game. I am going to be valuable to the alliance, and the alliance is more valuable than my dots. We'll find out. We've got the army in Eddie, and we've got army in Budapest, and that looks like the only changes on the board. We'll go ahead and just move right on. Oh, go ahead.
And you know how there's an argument for England to say, you know what? I can still get some dots that aren't German. I can get some armies over the top. I don't need to stab Germany right now. He's the front line here. This is okay for a couple of turns. So, you know, I'm not sure we're going to see it.
We'll find out. Let's go ahead and start in the West. And go ahead, Randy.
Yeah, just as Adam called it, England throws that army into St. Petersburg, and it gets there immediately. Double convoy via Norwegian and Barents, which is not something you see every day. So that's fun. And it wasn't guaranteed either. Russia chose to cover against Germany instead, probably figuring that if England slow plays it, then St. Petersburg is lost anyway. So might as well just give up the ghost there now.
That's the kind of play that shows why Peter McNamara is a former Alpha Weasel. Like that's a really, really smart time to make that guess.
Yep, very savvy. France covers the Mid-Atlantic unnecessarily. Italy gives up the Western Med, which I'm not sure I understand, honestly. I think the Western Med was a much better position to be in. He didn't need to come back to cover Tunis. Tunis was in no real danger, since Turkey can't force the Ionian. So I think maybe Italy just got nervous about being kind of outside of their dots there, but I think that is somewhat detrimental to their position.
All right, and in the East, Adam.
Yeah, I think, you know, what strikes me is this chain of arrows starting in Budapest and going out to the Tyrrhenian Sea, where we've got this crazy chain. Now, it works, and the ending position is actually fantastic for Italy and Austria. It's actually exactly where they want to be. They've got Tuscany covered, they got Tyrolia covered, they've got Vienna covered, they've got Bohemia covered. They're everywhere they need to be right now, except Galicia, which is probably okay. The problem is with ordering chains like that is if Leon goes to Tyrrhenian Sea, that's all gone. But like Randy said, I really don't like the move of Western Med to Tunis. You're not covering it from anything. Maybe there's a diplomatic reason for this that we're not seeing. Maybe there's something negotiated with the French that says, hey, let's try to de-escalate. I'm going to let you into the mid-Atlantic, pull my fleet back from the west, and let's see if there's a way to do this. So that's the only thing I can think of here. As far as everything else, there's the Italians support the Austrian fleet into Aegean, so continuing to make some pressure on the Turks, but they're not going to really make any progress from here. So, okay. But why not? But why not?
We'll stay in the east. Do they make any progress?
Well, the Italians go from Ionian to Eastern Med, so now you can crack them. So so that's good. It's also really interesting that they dislodge Piedmont, which elects to disband. Makes sense. They can rebuild it in Marseille as a fleet or something else. But clearly, this was a case where the French were interested in moving backwards. The Italians had something else in mind, and really just clobber Western Med, Lyon, and so well, you know, this is the way it goes sometimes. Let's see, the Germans are really just decimating. Germany and England are decimating Russia. Something's going to change really soon because now the Russian dots are owned by Germany. Germany takes 2 of them. England takes 1. Who's the odd man out?
Well, I think France has just made themselves the odd man out.
I think
one dot off of Germany, but Germany's still building. They throw a fleet into the Irish, but England is building, and they just lost Western Lyon and Piedmont. So I think France is about to have a.
They're going to build 2 though. They're going to put 2 down. They're going to put
2 down. That's true.
Yeah. All right.
But any hope of any further progress against Italy, obviously, is
there's no Western. I mean, I can't imagine this continues to play as a Western triple. I mean, this is just
this is an EG now.
We'll see. Yeah.
All right. Well, we get a army and a fleet. Ooh, that's interesting.
Another army from Germany too.
Yeah. Wow.
That's an EG.
And then we've got the fleet in Liverpool, which makes sense. Disband from Russia in Sev. And Livonia and Bothnia. Poor Paul Pignotti. Welcome back.
For Paul.
All right. So we'll start in the West. Randy.
Well, England pulls back as expected to fight France, and France is all in, fighting both Germany and Italy, and does not look like they're going to get the best of it. They get Holland, but they can't hold it if England and Germany work together. They are unable to get into Lyon. In fact, they almost lost Spain. If Italy had done it right, they would have taken Spain instead, and also walked into Marseille. So unfortunate from Italy's perspective, they didn't see that. Germany gets into Burgundy. So yeah, as I said, France may have bitten off more than he can chew.
All right, and Adam, I see Russia looks like they're moving to defend Sev. What is going on in the east?
Well, you know, Russia's making their last stand. You know, but I think what's interesting is that the Turks managed to get back into Bulgaria from Khan because Bulgaria is not supported. Instead, the Austrians decide to help the Italians into Smyrna. This makes sense because Aegean would have been cut had it supported Bulgaria anyway. But you know, this maybe offers some life to Turkey. I mean, Smyrna's down, but it's down to a fleet. Hard to say where it goes from here for Turkey. But I wouldn't. You know, Turkey's a hard nut to crack from this position. So there still may be some play there for them. Otherwise, the AI is solid, right? They're covering all of the middle ground, Tyrolia, Bohemia, while Italy is continuing to make some plays against France. Obviously, they guessed wrong in their attack there, but you know, they've got a shot going forward.
Randy, do you feel that France does like flip sides and tries to go in with the AI here?
You got to wonder. You got to wonder if France's pitch to them is, look, you can keep clobbering at me in the Med, but England will get to my dots faster than you will. Meanwhile, Austria and Italy, if they cooperate, could force Munich, and then Austria could probably get Warsaw after that. So France has got to be making the pitch to somebody. He's clearly ticked off all of his neighbors. So he's got to try to sell somebody on the idea of picking a different target.
Either upset them or everybody's just smelling blood in the water.
A little bit of both.
All right. So we've got Wow.
So that's
Adam, what is so entertaining?
a lot. Where do you start?
Let's start in the East.
Oh, yeah. Well, the East is a little bit less exciting, so I'll go quickly. Austria does retake Bulgaria, and that's and Austria also takes Munich. So that, in combination with what else happens in the West, I think is really the story of this turn.
Yeah, because we see Italy manage to force Marseille. We see England walk into Denmark and apparently stab Germany. I suppose it's theoretically possible that was arranged, but I wouldn't count on it, given that fleet in Denmark is going to be moving to the Baltic, if I know Peter. So France is still not in a good position, but now neither is Germany. So this is all really good for England and the AI. The AI are also in a very good position.
Well, Austria did pick up Serbia, but I think they lost Greece. I think Bulgaria retreated to Greece.
But that's retakeable. That's a Turkish army in Greece has got nowhere to go.
Yeah, absolutely. Just a matter of time.
I'll just point out the one other interesting thing to note is that France opted not to cover Paris, correctly predicting that the Germans would cut Gascony. Not clear that was really in Germany's best interest to help Italy take those dots, but there you go.
Especially since Germany had to be looking at those 3 units on Munich and wondering if they were going in there. If I'm Germany, I wouldn't help anybody get dots right now except me.
Right. Belgium's not covered. Paris is not covered. Think about what that unit could have done, right?
Germany's down 2 now. Germany just lost Holland and Denmark.
Yep.
So this is what the board looks like for winter of 1904. Let's play a game of Who Do You Like? Randy, we'll let you go first. If you've got to pick one power in the West, who do you pick?
Oh, you got to pick England. They've got no natural enemies. They just walked into a dot. They're building again. France has just lost a dot. So, I mean, England's in a great position.
Absolutely. Adam, anybody in the East that you feel like might be able to compete with England?
The AI is pretty strong, and I think they've got very little incentive to not continue working together. And I could see this being a long haul alliance. It's a question of whether one of them can overtake England on this board, and I'm not certain about that. But they can probably do pretty well sticking together for at least some time. There's a lot of dots there. What is it? 1, 2, 3 Turkish dots, 2 Russian dots, those two German dots in Russia. There's a lot of gains for the 2 of those countries if they stick together. So I would anticipate that that's going to happen.
If you had to choose between Italy or Austria to have the best chance at that top, who would you pick?
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, I probably like Italy in this position a little bit better, but it could go either way. But I'd probably give the edge to Italy. A little bit more flexibility in terms of where their units are and what they can do.
All right, well, let's keep going with this game. For our builds, rough turn for Germany. We've got Belgium, Warsaw, and Moscow all disbanded. We've got the army build in Eddie, fleet in Paris, army and fleet for Italy, and that's it. Anything stand out to you, Randy?
Well, there's a remote chance that Russia will be able to get back into the game now. Germany pulling those armies. Maybe Russia talks to Austria and says, hey, leave me alone. Let me slow England down, or you could even help me back into Moscow, and I'll happily keep England tied up there, and that gives you more opportunity in the middle.
That'll be fun. Adam, anything stand out to you?
Army Naples, Fleet Rome looks a little backwards to me, or why do you want the army in Naples when you got nowhere to convoy it to right now? I'm sure there's a reason for it, but would you rather have it in Venice than Naples, so it can maybe go somewhere, maybe follow into Piedmont if you try to shift that way or something like that? But it's okay.
That might have been negotiated with Austria. If I'm Austria and I see Italy throw down an army in Venice when I've got nothing to defend the homeland, I might be nervous. So that could have been agreed upon.
Fair.
It feels like it's got to be a diplomatic reason that we just aren't seeing here.
Yep.
All right. Well, let's begin in the East. Talk us through it.
Yeah. So yeah, we can. so the Turks go out onto Bulgaria. So choosing to give up their homeland, but making the play against Austria. So clearly we can see who their main enemy is. They go all out against Bulgaria and take it, while the Italians take Constantinople. It does look like the Russians and the Austrians have a deal to work together. We see the Austrians go into Warsaw. I wouldn't be surprised to see them support the Russians into Moscow come the fall, but you never know. You know, it's really interesting to see Italy move Tyrolia to Trieste in this position. I don't know why you would do that. It seems diplomatically a rough move. It seems not like a good setup for a stab. You can stab for a dot just as well from Tyrolia in the fall. So I'd be curious to understand what the reasoning for that. Maybe it's going to go to Albania to try to kick the Turks out of Greece. But conversely, if that was your goal, why not build the fleet in Naples and go to Ionian to do that? So, you know, I don't know. But I think also the Italians lost the Western Med, so that's also not super helpful for them.
And I think in some ways kind of answered your own question there. I think Tyrolia to Trieste is exactly what you said, heading down to Albania. And the reason they did that way is because if they build a fleet in Naples, move to Ionian, they knew they couldn't hold the Western Med, and they wanted the fleet in the Tyrrhenian Sea to protect Tunis. What Italy's done now is they'll be able to hold Marseille for another year now.
Then why not put down two fleets, though? Why do you need that army in Naples? Why didn't you put down two fleets? You're in the Ionian, you're in the Tyrrhenian Sea, you've got flexibility over how to cover Tunis, you've got flexibility over Greece, you've got, you know, just a lot more to do. I think that's probably, at least in hindsight, looking stronger to me.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Elsewhere in the West, as mentioned, France gets into the Western Med, but will be, unfortunately for them, unable to retake Marseille. They do get into Burgundy, and Germany gets back into Munich. So we're seeing some setbacks for the AI as France and Germany appear to have more or less resolved their differences, or at least decided, let's sort out our own home centers before we continue to fight each other. And England positions very well and will be able to take one of Kiel or Berlin. I'm going to guess Kiel. I assume England will be taking Kiel in the fall.
All right, let's find out. Go ahead, Randy.
England takes Kiel in the fall. Austria retakes Munich. So overall, a pretty rough year for Germany because they also lose Warsaw. And as I suggested earlier, Russia walks into Moscow with Austrian help, while also taking Budapest. But I'll let Adam talk about those ramifications. France does manage to retake Marseille, but at the cost of Spain. So that's certainly some very fun play by Italy right there.
I mean, I can't really overstate how much I dislike the move of Romania to Budapest. It's a build you can't use. You've got somebody keeping you alive, helping you out. It's just such a poor diplomatic choice. It's the kind of move that many players will spend the rest of the game ensuring you don't have a fun time the rest of the game, because it's really just not a it seems to me it's just a very undiplomatic move in this standpoint. If you can use the build, okay, you know, maybe, but you're already getting a build from Moscow that Austria is giving you. You know that you're getting that. You're going to put something down in Sev. Why do you need to adopt a guy that's been helping you out and that, you know, earlier on could have done a lot more to hurt you? So I really don't like it. But you know, it is what it is. The Austrians are unable to retake Budapest. Unable to retake Bulgaria. So I'm not sure if they're actually probably no, they're probably not going down because they take Warsaw. So they're down 2 and up 1, so they're going to have to pull this turn. So not great news for the Austrians, even though they do manage to retake Munich.
That's actually where I play a little bit of a devil's advocate here. I agree that diplomatically speaking, remaining to Budapest is probably not a great move, but Russia would be benefited here by causing as much chaos as possible. And an army in the middle of Austria, when Austria has to pull and Turkey is still putting up a very solid fight, this could play out to Russia's benefit. It's not at all obvious that Russia will lose Moscow, and it's not entirely clear they'll actually lose any dots. And if they can free up one of their home centers, they might somehow get another build next year and be right back in this.
Yeah, I could see it. Paul's a good enough tactician that he could definitely make something happen. So, all right, so we'll go ahead and stay in the east. Figure out. Well, let's look at the builds first. We've got the army in Sev, another disband from Germany. It's pretty much, is that it? Is that lights out for them? Did they lose?
That is game over for Germany. Now, pulling Berlin means that it will be. Yeah. But it was going to be anyway. There was nothing to stop England from forcing it.
So David chooses to keep the more interesting build, and he'll probably be asking all of his neighbors who wants to do something fun with that unit. We've got army build in Eddie, fleet in Naples, and that's it. We'll go ahead and start in the west. Randy.
France continues to battle Italy and is not getting the better of this battle. Italy walks into Marseille, retreats to Portugal, while France retreats to Tunis. So those two are extremely entangled with each other. And if you're England, you've got to be loving it. As long as they're fighting each other, they're not going to do anything useful to you, and you can continue to position yourself, take Berlin, get yourself an army in Livonia, so maybe you get Moscow if Austria decides to help you. So you still got to be loving England's position right now.
That's a mess, and I love it.
that is quite the mess.
All right.
At a certain point, you've got to imagine that they have had multiple conversations with each other, agreeing how much they hate this position and not being able to think of any way to untangle themselves.
I have had so many conversations like that as Italy and France, and they continue to just beat your head against the wall. Adam, let's go to the east.
Yeah, I mean, just to follow up on what Randy was saying in the west. I mean, look at how beautiful this is for England. Norway to Norwegian. Where do you think that fleet's going to go? That's going to go to the now, to the Mid-Atlantic, because hey, France, we're working together. I need to get something down there to help you block things up. I mean, this is just going to play out so well for England unless something really changes. I love the convoy to Livonia. It's always a great move. And, you know, this is a situation where you figure you can probably get away with it. I might have more expected St. Petersburg to just support that, but, you know, can't say anything wrong with what he did. So in the West, you can see that Italy and Austria arranged a bounce in Trieste to prevent the Russian from moving there, but Russia actually pulls back to Romania. So maybe something was arranged there. Hard to say, but the Austrian does pull back into Bohemia out of Munich, basically freely gives it up so that they can defend Vienna in the fall from the Russians. So really big setback for Austria. This is going to be very tough for Austria to come out of this well.
So if you're playing the chaos game as Russia, isn't Vienna wide open?
Yeah. On the other hand, being in Romania means Austria now has to guess between Budapest or Romania, unless Turkey does something strange there. And presumably, Russia might decide to take the gamble that Austria is not going to support England in Moscow. If he moves Seb to the Ukraine and is able to keep Budapest and Romania, he just got himself another build.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that will be interesting is Russia can defend Moscow without any interference from Austria. So maybe that's a pullback for some kind of arrangement there too. So. All right. So moving on to the fall, we'll stay in the east.
Yeah. So England does indeed not get to Moscow. It looks like Warsaw supporting Livonia in.
I think it may be the other way around.
I think Warsaw was supporting Moscow to Livonia.
Yep.
Yep. Okay. Interesting. Okay, and Russia guesses correctly and You know, so Russia again is going to be playing short here. Again, I personally don't like this style of play, but you know, I understand Randy's point about it. But I think that, you know, if you're trying to get something going on your side of the board, you can't do that in a way where you're basically destroying your diplomatic options, and you're really going to make life difficult for yourself. But we actually do see some love between the Turks and the Italians. This makes perfect sense for Italy to be doing this right now. It makes a lot of sense. You know, Austria's pretty much finished in this game. So yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, he's going to take Vienna and Serbia, lose Trieste, take Portugal. I think you're going to be up a couple. He's up three down.
Retook Spain and Tunis, picked up Portugal, Vienna, Serbia, only lost Marseille. Up 3.
Okay. You know, wow. you got that French.
Maybe 2.
I think he's building 2. I think
building
up
2,
3
yeah,
down,
right.
3 down 1. But you know, you got the French fleet in Tyrrhenian Sea, which is annoying, but you'll be able to deal with it. It's a single unit over there. France is going to be disbanding. It may disappear anyway.
France is going to be building.
France is building.
France picked up, retook Marseille, lost Portugal.
No, but Marseille was French. Marseille was French.
Right. So picked up Munich, lost Portugal. So you're right. France is even.
Yeah.
I think this is one of the messiest, but probably the best stab that we've seen of the tournament so far. Just really interesting.
Excellent. Taking advantage of the opportunity that Russia offered by walking into Budapest last year.
Absolutely.
That just completely set Austria off their game and gave Italy this opportunity.
Yep, it's great. So let's find out what they do. They build in Rome and Naples, army and fleet. I personally like that. Now it's officially goodbye, Germany. Thank you for playing, David. We've got the Austrians disband in Silesia. Peter in England just continues moving right along with another army. Excellent call. And yeah, anything stand out to either of you?
This is a race between England and Italy. They're both playing fantastic games. I mean, there's so little to critique about the way either of them are playing. They're taking advantage of the opportunities. They're building smart. You have to love a game like this, and they're going to be playing hard to the end because these are both players who want to win this game.
When we've got very differing styles also, and I love it. With England, we've got a very measured, consistent pace, just methodically moving along. With Jake in Italy, we've got just a wild, like, dots everywhere and playing to the taking advantage of the chaos. It's fantastic. All right, so let's start in the West. What do we see?
England realizes that he's in serious danger of losing his race for the top to France, and he's trying to pull down to pop up France before Italy can get all those dots. So probably coordinating with France to keep Italy out of the mid-Atlantic there, dropping to the English, and then dropping his armies down in Silesia. So this is England propping up France until such time as Italy has maybe lost a dot or two. Looks like Italy and Turkey might be in some issues, although I'll let Adam talk about that. So this is good play from England, keeping France alive for future use.
All right.
Let me just give a shout out to Turkey in this game, because you know what a great way to continue to fight out from a really rough position, and actually starting to look like they might have some play in this game. Certainly diplomatically, I'm sure they do. From a center count, their home centers aren't looking so good. But look, we've got 3 dots in the Balkans, or we're about to have 3 dots in the Balkans, and that's probably going to play out for this turn, right? We've got Bulgaria, Greece, and Serbia are just as likely to end up Turkish at the end of this turn. I'm not sure what Armenia is doing, but I guess I do know what Armenia is doing. It's going to support, it's going to make the attack onto Ankara now that the Italian fleet is stranded there. So that move looked pretty weird, but I guess if this was a trap that was being set, it's about to be sprung.
Yeah, it's great. So let's find out what happens.
Okay. Well, see, this is why we're commentators and not playing the game. Okay, so clearly ITR are actually working together here. So it's all been diplomacy. So now we have Turkey in the Black Sea from Khan. Again, it's a little bit puzzling why Turkey would want to have that second fleet in there. But again, if this is the diplomacy to keep Turkey in the game, why not? If that's what Italy's asking you to do and it's going to keep you in the game, why not? But again, you just gave all your home centers to Italy, so it is a little bit strange. I mean, I think I would have preferred to see Khan supports arm to Ankh, or even vice versa. But it is what it is. And moving to Trieste. So keeping Serbia Italian, just getting that kind of pirate army up there. Is this the end of Austria? I believe this is the end of Austria. So sadly so.
Well, we will bid farewell to Melinda, and I will say I've played many games with Jake, and he can be quite a charming player. He has a way of asking for things that other people might think are just ridiculous, and people want to do them. And I think that's what we're seeing right here. All right. So we've got fleet build in Rome. We've got an army build in Naples, and a fleet in Liverpool, and an army in Paris. We're going to go ahead and pause here. Let's go ahead and just take a minute. We'll do another round of who do you like? I mean, clearly it's between England and Italy. Randy, if you had to pick one, who do you think has a better shot at the board top?
I mean, I would have said England if it wasn't for the fact that Italy is performing absolute miracles with his diplomacy down there. Board position-wise, I think England has the stronger, more solid position. He's got a bunch of French dots that he can grab whenever he wants, but Italy clearly has Turkey and Russia on his side, at least for now. So, I mean, I have to say England. I would rather be playing England right now than Italy, but I would not be surprised to see Italy pull out this board top at all.
Adam.
Well, I can easily count to 15 or 16 for England, but if I'm gonna count that way, that means I can count to about 18 for Italy. So, I ultimately still think I give the advantage to England, just because I think the way it's going to, because of how the game's likely to play out. But it's razor thin margin here. It's a razor thin margin, and I think it could go either way. And this may be a game where diplomacy trumps tactics and Trump's position, and if that's the case, it looks like Italy has had the advantage in this game from the diplomacy side. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I love the contrast in styles. It's fantastic.
Everything could still go wrong for Italy, but that was true for the last several years, and it hasn't yet. So he's pulling miracles out of a hat here.
I think there's a lot more risk for Italy. There's very little risk for England's position.
Absolutely.
I mean, England is just completely solid here.
Absolutely. All right. Well, let's move on. We've spent enough time with the 606. We'll move on. Testicle. Let's go ahead and bring up round one, board 3. We're picking this one up in 1907. Peter McNamara has a very, very solid England, and that one was played very tactically. And then the opposite theater, we've got Jake Trotta in Italy, who has been playing a very dynamic and diplomatically strong game. It's going to be really, really interesting to see how this game turns out. I can't wait. We'll get started. Adam, why don't do you remember which theater you were in?
I was doing the East.
All right. Why don't you stay in the east, and we'll let Brandon take the west, and we'll start in the east.
All right, so let's just look really quickly. Italy and Turkey continue to work together, and it looks like Italy, Turkey, and Russia in many ways are working together, actually, and making this. Italy's real focus seems to be more on pushing against France. They make some tactical choices to go out to Lyon and give up Spain for the moment. So that's kind of interesting. It's also interesting to note that they convoy into Greece. That may be with Turkey's agreement, or it may not be. I think we probably have to wait and see.
Brandon in the west.
Yeah, the west, you see Peter McNamara just positioning. He's trying to get armies over to try to make some headway in the Russian centers. Well, Warsaw left. He'll need some help from France in order to do it. And there was a 50-50 guess here between France and England, and I'm sorry, between Russia and England, and Russia got it right. But I think Russia will still need to be winning guesses at this point in order to hold it. Otherwise, it looks like France and England are on board here.
All right. Staying in the west, Brandon, it looks like we've got England moving into Holland. That's of note. What's going on?
So it looks like it's probably not agreed upon. There's bounces in Kiel. The army pulls back to Belgium, probably hoping that he might bounce England going to Belgium. And in Warsaw and Moscow, we have a little dipsy doodle, which involves just an exchange of centers, but nothing else really happens. France holds on to Spain, which is significant.
Yeah, I think that's probably the most significant thing I see on that side of the board. Chris, on the east, talk to us.
Yeah, so I think the most notable thing is that Italy decided that Turkey's outlived their usefulness. So we're taking Trieste, we're going to try to take all 3 centers. We're going to get 2 of them instead. And this is a very sensible play for Italy, I think. You'd rather those units be yours.
Yeah, and here we see Ukraine making it into Moscow, Moscow making it into Warsaw. So I believe the count stays even. Do you feel like that changes position any?
Yeah. England's position is better here.
Yep.
And they can't guarantee that they take Moscow. So there could be a stalemate there. So if Italy takes Romania, I mean, the thing is, Italy is securing the board top at this point, and it's coming to the point now where Italy can't really lose. England can't really board top without throwing a solo to Italy. That chance evaporated with Turkey going down, which is what's happening now.
All right, and go ahead and go to the builds. We've got an Army Venice. Turkey's disbanded everything except black, which is the fun option. England builds Fleet Liverpool, and that looks like that's it. Anything stand out to either of you?
Well, certainly Fleet Liverpool implies that that England is not at this point going to be making a move on France. You would have expected an army in London probably, or an army of some sort if there was going to be a play in that direction. It doesn't preclude it, but it seems less likely with that build.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. This game should end. I'm surprised it goes on another year after this.
Yeah, I think that Brandon's analysis is probably right. This is probably going to start to wrap up with Italy probably getting the top here.
Well, let's find out. Adam, why don't you go ahead and talk to us about the East?
Yeah, I mean, in Russia, England is trying to make the play onto Moscow and is unsuccessful in doing so. He does work with the French to destroy the Italian fleet in Portugal, which is a big success for them.
This is a misorder on Italy's part. Lyon should be supporting Portugal to Spain.
Yeah. So Portugal should have made it into Spain, but this is just that's pretty painful because this really locks up the line for England and France at this stage.
And it's a 2-center shift because it goes from Italy to England.
That's right.
That's big.
England.
Sorry.
No,
yeah, you go ahead.
England does go in from Holland into Belgium. Not clear if that's agreed or not. Certainly, it might be, given that England has sort of left quite a bit in Germany open. So there's not a lot of incentive necessarily to make a one-dot stab like that without having a discussion around it.
Yeah, this may be a case of France being willing to throw the board top to England, since it probably it won't impact France's score all that much. Anyway.
All right.
Well, that being said, that France may not be able to afford a disband to hold the line in the middle.
Right. So the question would be, like, Bohemia, can the English armies replace that? I suspect that they can. And then the question is, does Italy go for Romania in order to get the board top? Let's see what happens.
We'll find out. Brandon, why don't you talk to us about the West?
Well, I mean, the interesting thing is in the north here, where Russia pulls units back and gives up on Moscow. That's a curious one. It's hard for me to understand. Maybe he thought there was going to be a bounce with Italy, but it's in Italy's interest to leave Russia up there. So that's something very strange happened there.
Italy support them into Romania?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Otherwise, it's France pulls a couple units back here, which suggests that maybe that was not so kosher, taking out Belgium.
Well, you also could wonder if this is sort of a defensive play just to get into the Rome Munich.
Yeah, set up the line.
Yeah.
But look, that the misorder over Spain could end up being pivotal here in terms of the board top. Yep. So it all comes down to numbers here. What are the center counts after this turn?
Let's see.
I think it switches 14-13.
Yeah, wow. Man, it's that one center.
It's huge.
Yep. I mean, yeah. So England still would have had Portugal, but Italy would have had Spain. They'd be tied, and then Italy could try to go for the board top by taking Romania and probably Sevastopol. I think, since they'd be able to get into black, I think they'd be able to secure that. Maybe that's what it'll do. Let's see what happens.
All right. So we've got
Spain. France pulls Spain.
Wow. Wow. I wonder.
So I think that right now is okay, though, right? Because you can go Burgundy supports Marseille, Gascony can go to Spain with Portugal's support, and you've still got the fleets behind mid-Atlantic to hold it. So
but then there's a guessing game over Marseille or Spain.
There's not, though, because Burgundy doesn't need to support Munich. It can support Marseille, and Portugal can support Gascony to Spain. You only got 2 on Spain. You only got 2 on Marseille.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought you were saying Marseille go to Spain. You're saying
no. Gascony can go there because you don't need it to support Marseille right now.
Okay.
So I actually think that's the right move. That's the right disband.
Okay. And then so Italy, to get the board top, will have to go through the 2 Russian centers, and
we'll find out. Adam, talk to us about the East.
Yep. So obviously, as Brandon just pointed out, Italy is going for those 2 Russian centers. So the question is, he'll get to 15 this year. Can England get another center in some way? And it's not clear that they really can afford to take a dot off of France unless France wants that to happen. I could see a situation where they arrange to get an army into Munich or something, but we'll have to see. I don't know if I was France, if I would agree to that.
All right. And Brandon, anything jumping out to you in the West?
No. It's just things getting in position. But Brest is the one that England can take here if he wants to try to.
But you lose the line as soon as you do that, right? I mean, France does not have a unit. There's not a unit to spare for France to pull and still hold the line. You've got to have Burgundy supports You got to have Ruhr supports Munich. You've got to have Burgundy supports Marseille.
Yeah, I would have liked to have seen the army convoyed over to Denmark in order to be sent to Berlin this turn, or pulled Prussia back. Like there's other things that Peter could have done here in order to enable him to take Brest, but it would all have to be done with French permission, because French could throw a solo to. Maybe not a solo. Oh God, I don't know, but definitely throw the board top if you wanted to. Okay.
I think you want to get in. Yeah, you want to get into St. Pete so you can hold this line and not worry about losing Warsaw, though.
All right, let's stay in the West, Brandon.
Yeah, so they conspire the West to give Spain to England. Man, this really kind of comes down to. That's the loss of Spain. If Italy had been in Spain, then he could have at least forced some guessing. Marseille would have been a threat, or or they would have had to risk Mao in order to try to take Spain. In fact, no, I think they could have guaranteed it. Oh no, there would have been guessing and stuff. Anyway, but no. So France is helping England board top, and
is it a question? No, it's a tie. It's 15-15, isn't it?
Yeah.
So I believe,
and this is where it ends.
It ends in spring 11. So
yeah. So the only question now is whether they really have the line set up as Adam has been talking about, and I think they do.
Yeah, they go into Baltic. Baltic will support Prussia. Well, I don't even know if they need Baltic supporting. They Prussia.
They just need another army.
They get that army into Kiel, the fleet into
exactly.
Baltic. And I think this is a lot.
Yeah, I think that's it.
This is a cool game, though. I mean, as far as playing the scoring system goes, this is given how the other games have gone tonight, 41 is actually quite a good result for the first round. The play has been tighter than we would have expected for the first round, and these guys will be in the top 7, I think, almost certainly.
Absolutely.
And hats off to France for playing that middle position really, really, precarious position and playing it to get a pretty reasonable result. Actually, that 17 points is actually close to what we've seen. Though some of those shared board tops weren't very much higher than that, so it's actually not a bad score at all.
Yeah, for for center survival, that's this is how the system works, right? Like if you make it to the end, you're going to get 10 to 20 points. So, okay.
Well, I for one really enjoyed this game a lot. I think it was a great contrast in styles between what I feel like is a very tactical game versus a very diplomatic game between England and Italy. Love to see the contrast, and I don't love split board tops, but in this case, I think this is the right result.
I'm with you, and they both, I think, had to navigate some difficulty earlier in the game. Jake especially had some strange positions and some difficult, I think, alliance moments to navigate. So it's impressive to see this result.
Yep. All right, let's move on.